Hi, David. How are you? Chris?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm okay. Hanging in there. Yeah.
Uh,
We'll go over the lab today shortly. I ran into an issue on it, so I'll point to you guys where that issue is going to be. So,
all right, sounds good.
okay. We'll start in a minute, everybody. Check out the homework assignment, and if you want, you can look at the lab. But not the best when we're on Zoom, so I'm getting spotty, laggy network connectivity through practice lab right now. So it was running okay for a little while ago. So let me see, I'm gonna double check something.
Professor, if I get dropped, I'm gonna have to keep logging on. My internet is terrible at the moment.
Okay, I got you. I know you're here. Yeah, I'm getting like a little spotty internet myself for practice lab. Usually it's pretty good, but I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, normally I can run the lab with the Zoom, but I'm barely keeping connected with the Zoom. I don't know why. I'm trying to switch to 5 megahertz. Maybe my 2.5 is messed up.
Okay. Yeah, sometime if you switch over, but you know, 5 gigs is like short range. So if you're far, well, you know, you still in your household, you should be okay. Okay, so let's talk about what we have in store for us today. I ran into a bit of an issue with practice lab, so I'm sending them a ticket to see why it is that way. I think they forgot to enable something on their end, but I repeat the steps like 5-6 times and it's not there. So, and there's nothing I can do on my end, which drives me crazy. All right, so I'm gonna share screen real quick. Okay, I hope you guys are doing okay. I see everybody's names, so I should be able to get you if you get dropped off on the internet or something like that. So let's talk about what we have to do. I added the homework assignment, which help you review for your quiz. So when you get a chance, it's not due until next Thursday. So you find that here, and you can type directly into the document, you know, as you download it, type out the answer. Most of the questions you would be able to find from your previous assignments and notes. So you can go back to those and use those as your guides, and then type out the answer. The whole point is to cover the topic that I will add to the quiz. So I will release the quiz next week with the quiz game. So it's approximately 30 questions, and all of those we went over before. So check that out. Make sure you complete it, because if you don't have a few homework assignments, it impacts the grade. So just in any case, turn it in, okay? All right. Now, if you don't have Microsoft Office, I just want to point out to you again that you do get a license as a student. Office 365 is located there. And then when you go to the website, you can, you know, register your information and download. It does take a little bit of download if you're trying to download and install. Just keep that in mind. Okay. Or you can log into outlook.com, select Microsoft Word, and then open the file and start typing. Oh, it will authenticate to your OneDrive. So this lab, I intended for you to use SleuthKit with Autopsy, but it seems like it's having some hiccups right now, possibly on practice lab end. So I gotta find out what's going on. But I'm gonna go through the instructions and explain to you. If you get to pause where I come across as a problem, you can also contact them. But as soon as I get any kind of fix on it, I'll let you know. It is actually a simple fix on the network end on their part. So when you click that link in lab 5, which was located here, right? Keep in mind that when you're using practice lab, sometimes it gets a little slow when everybody's on that same virtual machine. So they told me with that one instance, they can have 250 users on it, and the more users that they get on it, it slows down. Even on their back end, they're using Palo Alto and through their data center. However, it's still gonna get a little laggy because you're gonna have bottleneck coming into that one part of the network. So just be patient with it, and then sometime if you're on a certain time, that's why I want to give you a couple of days to get working on it. So last week we did the file system with Windows. This week I want you to take a look at how you can work with Linux and in the virtual machine, and it's going to use Kali Linux. So yeah, it's telling me I'm getting an invalid session here. So it just times me out on that. Okay, so there are 3 virtual machines that you're going to be using, which are listed there. So they don't list a bunch anymore because they're listening to us. So the first virtual machine you're going to use is the Windows 8.1. The reason why we're using this one is that they have files that they want to share to the other machine, which are Linux machines. And if you format the partition for that Windows 8.1 using FAT, you can definitely share it on the Windows network, and other systems like Linux should be able to see it. We talked about how FAT is compatible. It's able to, we can use FAT as a file system across. Okay, so keep in mind that they're using a FAT partition there. So we want to power on 8.1, and throughout the lab it's going to ask you to turn on certain virtual machine, keep them running. Otherwise you're going to have a mismatch in the activities. So after you turn on the 8.1, which is Windows 8, so here I'm going to click on it so you can see. And once in a while, if you get the disconnected message, which sometimes it does that, just clicks the lightning bolt right here to reconnect it, because it might have time out if you walk away from it, or sometimes you get spotty internet, it does that too. So it tells you to go into, I'm gonna go through. So the steps is gonna tell you to go into file manager, which is the folder. And then you're going to go ahead and open up C drive. And in the C drive, they created this folder called work. Okay. And then inside work, you have data files. And then inside chapter 7, you should have only this WinRAR file. So it's a zip file. And this zip file contains images that we want to pull from, or for our case that we're going to build an autopsy. So what they have you do is, first you got to extract it by opening it, and once you click open, what happened is WinRAR will launch and it decompress all the files, and this is what you would see. Okay, so you would have these files. And what I'm talking about is the beginning step. So basically right here, step 1 through 4, that's mainly you access Windows 8.1, open up File Explorer, right? 8.1, they call it File Explorer, and then open up C, go to Work Folder, Data Files, Chapter 7, and then right-click the WinRAR file and extract it, the compressed file. Then it's gonna use WinRAR to self-extract, and you see a bunch of GFX file, okay? Then what you're gonna have is you are still in 8.1. You are going to right click the C drive, go to properties, and then go to the advanced sharing tab. So the way it looks is like this. Let me get back into it. Oops. So I'm here and I can close this if I want, right? And then if you're back in File Manager or the File Explorer, you can go to this PC if you don't see it, right? It should show this. And then right click it, the C drive, go to Properties. Come on. Now, there's a shortcut to this. There's an option called Share With, and you can use that to share certain folder or drive on the network or to other people. Doesn't have to be directly to the rest of the network, but you can also do it that way. Or you can go to Properties and then go to Sharing tab, and it would give you the advanced sharing. Same thing, okay? Now, sorry, I don't mean to click that. You need to click Network Sharing Center, which allows us to set up this drive to be part of the rest of the network. Okay, so what you have is they have you turn this on, turn on sharing with anyone in the network so that way they can read or write from that public folder. So once you enable that C drive to be shared, what will happen is people that are connected to the network is going to be able to view that machine, and then when they click on that machine and put in the username and password, they can access the folder. So just to recap, right? So far we did extraction of the actual zip file or the compressed file using WinRAR. That was in C drive. And then we're going to enable share. Okay. We're going to go ahead and enable share. And it tells you to go to advanced sharing and then click on the share this folder. Okay. Okay. I think that's why I missed it. So in the advanced sharing, you have to check C. Otherwise, you only see the C dollar, which is different. Okay, so let me go back to mine, and then I'll show you where that is. Come on. Okay, so with this, what we can do is we can go to advanced sharing, and then we're gonna go ahead and choose share this folder. Make sure we check C. It automatically plug in that folder name. Now, if you know, in other cases, in other circumstances, we want to rename that so that way we would know what that would be on the network. We would click OK, right? And then, so what happens next after you share that folder is that we would need to also do the network sharing. So there are two steps to that. Advanced sharing, click share folder, and then go to Network Sharing Center, which is the link, okay? Which is this one. So after I use advanced sharing and share the C, I would go ahead and click a Network Sharing Center. Make sure I choose this radio button, turn it on, click Save Changes, and then we can close it, okay? And you can always go back and check. I always double check and make sure it's there. Okay. And then you can, you know, but in any case, we share that folder, we allow network share, and notice that it doesn't have the security tab. That means that it's also not an NTFS. That's a quick way to really see, and also you can take a look at the file system. Okay. So we're done with that part, Windows 8.1. then what you're gonna do is you are going to boot up. Next is you are going, after you enable the network share, so people can see on the network, you are gonna boot up the SRV01, which is Kali. So this one on the bottom, the SRV01 is gonna be Kali. So with the Kali, okay, when it first starts, you have to authenticate to it. So the username they give you there, which is root, and then the password, which is password with capital P and with the 0. Okay, so sorry, I'm just getting spotty with iWeasel. So okay, it's not connecting. Now in Kali, what you will do is you're going to click on the computer icon, and then inside it you can browse the network. Now they already pre-configured this so that way Linux can see the other virtual machine, right? The Kali Linux machine can see the other machine, in that, you know, they enable the services for Linux to see the rest of the network. So, and so when you do this at home, if you have something like this, you know, you have to configure the back network to really see. So they already did some of that for you, so you don't have to configure that part. Okay, so let me, and it's not okay. So I'm gonna go to computer, and you can find that in places as well. It's a little slow right now. Kali does that too. They increased the RAM on it since last semester when I taught CIS27, which we used some of the lab with it. But, you know, if it's not responsive, you got to give it a couple of tries. So I'm not getting. But in the folder, in the computer, what you will see is something like this. Okay, you're going to see a floppy drive and a file system. And on the bottom left, you would see Browse Network, and you would click it. And what that will do is it's going to open up the network console where you would see other machines that are connected. Okay, and it would see the Windows network, and it would see the 8.10. So if you don't have the DFT01 on, it won't show there. So if you have that on, it should be able to show there. Okay, but we're gonna double click, we're gonna click on the 8.1, and then it's gonna prompt you the username and password. Type it in. When you get inside 8.1, make sure you click C folder, not the C dollar, okay? Because the $sign in Windows environment simply just state that it was shared, but not necessarily that they enable the share permissions for specific machine for that particular, even though we enable the C, that's a separate thing from that local system. So what will happen is, let me see if I can, it actually, nope, it timed me out on that one. Oh, come on. So it's not responding for me right now. But anyway, so once you go through, you open up the 8.1, you authenticate, make sure we type in username and password. It's going to open up the directory list. Okay. So there's the C dollar, which should be on the right. And then you have a C folder, which has, you know, it's just a C. Then you open that up. And so if you miss a step, that's what happened to me. I missed that step, so it didn't open, it didn't show that folder. So what you have is you have to connect to it. And when you choose to authenticate to that, see, it's going to prompt you username and password. You use administrator and the password that's given. Select remember the password until you log out, and then click connect. Once you connect, you're going to see that work folder and the extracted files that we did in the first part. Okay, so they want you to gather, and you hold down the shift to select multiple item. They want you to select 01, 02, 03, 04, and 05, 5 files. And then you're gonna copy it. So what they're doing from the forensic side is that they have an image that was compressed and it's stored on a Windows system. And then we would use the directory and the drive where that was stored and share it on the network, so we can use a virtual machine that's configured to connect to that network to pull that image from to copy the image, I shouldn't say pull, to copy the image from that Windows system. So in any case, if you mess up on the Windows, the image that was copied, you still have the compressed and the decompressed one in the Windows system. So that way you don't impact the image that you created and stored on that Windows 8.1. Okay, so they have you copied it, and then you're gonna make a folder and you're gonna paste it. You're gonna call it evidence and you're gonna paste it in there. So we want to keep organization when we copy the image over. Okay, so you have the evidence folder. Now also on Kali, it comes, if you just create the Kali virtual machine, right? And so part of the tool set with the latest release for Kali, part of the tool set is Sleuth, and you would use Autopsy to really do some investigation, right? This is open source, it's available with Kali, right? And if you don't use Kali, if you use another type of Linux, then you can simply be able to install it by writing in the terminal the command to do that. Okay, but make sure that you read the information about that kit and see the compatibility and the system requirement. So that's what it's telling you right there. And with the Kali, what they have is we are going to mostly use the terminal. Okay, just like any CLI, you got to make sure that you type your command correctly with the slash. So if you have syntax issue, it's gonna tell you no. So here, you're gonna restart the Apache service. Okay, and Apache is legacy. It's not Apache 2 even, it's not something new. They use it for, you know, different network-based services. So you can even run Apache for web services, like if I'm hosting, you know, like for websites and such. So Apache is useful in that way. So what happened here is it's a type of service that we restart, okay? And with that, we would open up Autopsy. So when you issue the command Autopsy, all that does is it's gonna launch it in terminal, okay? And this field, you have to really get used and get good at command line. This is, there's no escape around it. It's, and also like if you're using shell, like PowerShell, you know, Bash shell, those are the things that you really need to brush up, because you know you will get to a facility and you turn on the screen for that system and all you see is command line, right? Because that's a lot of the times that's our world. So in Autopsy, what you're gonna do is you're gonna build a case, you're gonna put in the case information, and this part of the exercise is gonna walk you through that, understanding how to really create a case using that software and to use the forensic tool with it. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay, so once we issue that, it's gonna have you open iceweasel, and this is where I was, because of my connection, it's just in and out maybe, or something happened when with on the practice lab side. So with the iceweasel, which is a browser, right? And if you're interested, if you like to get good at Kali, Packet T, I'll show you. Packet T release, I have this cookbook and I have the second cookbook to, you know, sometimes I would buy the updated book. So I, you know, because they give you the tips on some of the things that you can use with the tool. And it always surprises me because I thought I knew how to use that tool and then they added something else with it. So, and they always, Kali's always updating. So if you are new, I recommend that along with this class, after this class or during this class, I think, you know, it's not very expensive. It's about $30–40. You can find it cheaper through their website. Sometime around Christmas, they will do like $99 for unlimited books on in their group. But this cookbook is also very useful, especially when you're working with stuff like this. So there's a whole section on iceweasel, okay? And this is a special browser. It's not like your regular typical browser. Like, you know, if you think Firefox is cool, some of these browsers are even way better, right? So you would have different ways to really set up so that way you can do a lot of passive scan, because when we use Kali, a lot of times we use Kali for scanning, and when you scan, it calls home, meaning that it tells the target who you are, like what system is communicating from. And in some cases, when we do investigation, we have to be stealth. So that means that we have to set up a type of browser that's not going to call home. Okay. Now some scanners are passive scanner, like you know, like Wireshark is pretty passive. But when you start going through ethical hacking or doing other type of scans outside of forensic, you will see that, you know, when you're doing like recon, so reconnaissance is about digging out information and looking into something further. So a lot of the time we scan with that, like DNS, network components and systems. So, you know, learning the little details on how to use iceweasel is good. Okay, so that's my recommendation with that. That's just my side note. So here it shows you on how you would enable the preferences with the content, and you have to enable JavaScript because the application, it uses specific add-ons to show you the interface. A lot of it is for the UI, because JavaScript is really the front end, JS Node is the back. So what you have is for the user front, so that way you can interface with the system. So you will need to enable the JavaScript, okay? And so once you have enabled the JavaScript, you would type in this address right here for Autopsy, and it's gonna link. So what they have is they have it hosted, so that's why you have it with Apache, and then you would connect to it. Now, you don't have to have a Linux to host something like that, right? Apache is commonly used for a lot of like web hosting and things like that, or other type of services, but you, on the Windows side, we would use IIS. So once you get there, press enter, and then once you open up that, it's gonna look like this. So you would have the forensic browser, right? It's a web hosted tool, and then you're gonna make a new case by clicking that button. Okay. Oops, sorry. So after you make a new case, you're adding the host, you're following the steps, you put it in. So by practice, we want to fill out the information for our case, okay? and we would put down like the type of case that we have, the description, time zone. Remember, we used UTC because we want it to be universal, even if your case is in California or in somewhere that you would be operating. Okay, and then after that you would add the host, add the image, and the image you had pulled, right? You had copy. So once we do that, we would add the image and then fill out the information about the location of the image, the image details. So now, why is it important to finish all that up first? Because when most of these tools will have a report mechanism, so when you click export report, that will take care of all of it. So that way, when you put everything together, whether for court cases or to report it to the company, let's say you are a consultant doing this, right? You would have all of that details instead of going back and then retyping everything out in a separate document. We want to put everything in the form so that way it's all together, it's organized, okay? And then here it tells you to do the MD5 message. So remember, we always wanted to make sure that we check the value for our drive, for our file, to make sure that why does it really matter to look at the sum or to look at the hash or to look at these things, is because we want to make sure that it has integrity. There's no changes, you know, throughout or even before. So because sometimes you will get things or case file from other people, and when you first to start, right, you want to identify the issues so that way you can minimize your mistake down the line. And this is important across, not just for forensic. So when we do analysis for security, we also want to be organized, be detail oriented with the information we put in. And then also we want to make sure that we start with, you know, information that has integrity, so that way we don't have to do a lot of back work. Okay, so in the chapter this week we talk about keyword search. So this is a good way to practice it. Instead of using Plazo, you would, or Plazo some people call it, right, you would search for a certain type of keyword. Okay, so in that image we can seek, right? We can look at allocated space, which is where the files occupied, or unallocated space, which is where if you have deleted files, it might throw it there, or free space. And this is where sometimes people hide things. So we wanted to make sure we check there. So we're gonna look for Martha, okay? And we just type it into the search bar inside Autopsy after we fill out the information, and then it's gonna link and give you the link result. Okay, so it points to this with the ASCII link, and then it's also gonna give you the hex links. Now with this, you know that it converts, so everything there's different type of schematic on how they would information or text can be used across, you know, different systems. So we talked about encoding with ASCII and encoding with Unicode, and in this section it kind of touches back on that. So once you receive your results, what's going to have is you're going to have the ASCII format, and then the hex links information, which is that's going to tie back to Martha on what you had searched. Okay, then we are going to add a new image, and then we want to switch back to terminal, okay, on your, or close to terminal, exit Autopsy after we search for that because that's what they have you do to look at. So you have that experience doing that, and then go back to 8.1. Okay. So in 8.1, you are going to look for tools and resources on the intranet page, just like last week. Okay. So when we open up Internet Explorer, okay, it's going to look like this with the intranet. And then we are going to go to, let me follow the path so I have it correct because they have it. Okay, so tools, data forensics, and then you are going to run, you're going to unzip the autopsy. Now notice that you had done the autopsy with Apache on the server. What it's going to do is it's going to show you how you can use it in a Windows environment. And you can tell that it is a Windows file when it uses the MSI for the install. Okay. Now that's different than the executable. So with MSI is that we can unzip it and install it, and then that will open up the exe file. And with the exe file, because in the application, sometime when they write it, they would have multiple areas for, or multiple exe within, or just one. Like in the case where if you're looking at like Chrome browser or an application on Windows, it's just be one. So once you have gotten to the data forensic folder, you're going to click the zip, okay? And then we're going to download it to that local system, which is 8.1, save it, and then extract it, okay? So real quick, I think I can get that done on the Windows side, so because it's not so delayed. No. Okay, data forensics is right here. Okay. So we want to get to, is it data files? Autopsy. Just autopsy. Right there. Sorry, I scroll up too fast. Okay, so once you click it, it's gonna wanna save. We're gonna go ahead and click save. Okay, and this will take longer than your usual system, your regular system, because you know we're relying on theirs and we're remote into their system, so that's gonna take a little bit. So once you have saved it, then you simply extract it. Okay. So with the extraction, after you extract all, then you're going to install it. So this MSI file allows us to install, go through the wizard setup for autopsy. Okay. And then you're going to finish. Keep Internet Explorer open. Keep all the devices open. And then they're going to walk you through the USB drive image. So when I was looking around earlier, I saw that they have a USB enable, you know, drive there. So again, so we are going to go back to the Internet Explorer to the intranet page. Then you're going to go to the data forensic again, and then you're going to download the USB.zip. Okay. So while it's doing that slowly, I see it right here. So don't close that page after you download the autopsy.msi.zip. So you're also going to download this one as well. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and click save. Now, if you just click open, in case something happens, you have to go back and re-download it because, you know, it doesn't throw it onto the downloads folder. So Okay, any questions so far? So wait, go get a snack, come back. It's probably still downloading. However, because I'm on 5G and it's still pretty laggy. Then what you would do is after you had finished downloading, we are going to extract the USB.zip as well. So it walks you through that process because the first part we already did the install. Okay. So what will happen is once you have unzip it, you would see the content of that USB. And this USB contain also images, right? So let's say that we show up at the crime scene and we create a copy of the image from certain system and we put it on our USB. Then we get to our office or home, then we would use Autopsy to be able to look at those images so we can do analysis. Okay? Okay. So here it shows you, it walks you through on how to use Autopsy 4.00. Similar to what you've seen on the Apache side, but it looks a little bit different because the UI is created for Windows. So this looks like the Autopsy, and then you're gonna make a new case. You're gonna fill out the information, right? This is a different, so it's also Chapter 7, but this is for Windows. So fill out the form, create a new folder, call it Autopsy, and then enter the new case information. So they have you set it up. Set up the case number, then click finish. Okay. Then after you have completed that, then we're gonna go ahead and browse to our image, which we pull from the USB.zip. Okay. Charlie Work USB. That was one of the ones that were compressed inside that USB.zip. And then click open. Okay. So pretty straightforward as far as browsing to the file. And then we're back here to this option again. Then you're gonna go next and you're gonna configure ingest module. Okay. So with this is that we can set up our module, which is for our case, to be in specific, meaning that we can eventually seek certain things, okay, or look for, identify certain things in that image, okay. Now here it tells you that you, in your workspace, it's gonna show up as NTFS and exFAT, so that will be the partition, the section of the drive that you're gonna be looking at, okay, under Charlie Work. Now, after this, right, you would have to produce some kind of output and subdirectory for the locker, meaning that we want to specify like where everything is located. You can identify the files for report. And so after you complete that, then you can shut everything off. Okay. So that walks you through on how to use Autopsy on the Windows side, how to install it, how to create a case, how to put, and when you make a case, make sure you put it in a folder, name that folder, and then, you know, browse to the image file and then set up for the module to be working with that, and then looking at partition, how it would be some information there. Okay. Then next, we are going to use a Linux virtual machine, which is a workstation that's different from the SRV1, which is Kali. So that one needs to be on your DEFT01, your DEFT01. Okay, let me see. So it would be like this. Okay. So once you put that on and log in, you would use root and password similar to what you use in the same as what you use in Kali. Then you're gonna mount. Okay. Now in Linux, we know that we have to use terminal. So we would then launch our terminal and use the mount manager. Okay. And you would simply issue mount manager with that. Now, most of the Linux releases, you can issue that and it would launch it if it exists. If it doesn't, it's going to tell you an error and then you have to install that particular application. Okay. So with this, what we will do is we will use dhash2. Now, it's going to give you the hashes. Then after that, you would write down the value. Okay, don't close it yet, right? In our real case, we would establish the hash just like how we did with the MD5, right? So we identify, we see the hash, we would record it for our case, write it down, and then you can actually close the application. So what is that telling us? In any case, before you start going through and looking at doing the analysis, you need to make sure that you do checksum or find the hash. Make sure that you record it, because that way you would have a procedure that you verified it, right? And then you looked into it and then you verify it again. Okay. So with after we had established the hash with the analysis, it's going to have you go to the DEFT to DEFT, and then you are going to open up Autopsy in the browser, and then you're going to do the analysis. Okay. So I think I missed something on the bottom. Oh yeah. So it says that double click the G hex icon. This is a hex editor, right? Last week we talked about how you can input something in that as far as changing that hex value or type in the hex. So it basically is a simple hex editor. And you can use, some of them will have the calculation where you can actually calculate the hex value, but this is the hex editor, which is the ghex. Okay, let's see. And we've done Pro Discovery before. We have added the image. That was one of the first practice lab that you've done, I think, in week 2. Okay, so here we're gonna come back to that again. Now, it's gonna ask you to convert this file to DD. Okay, we did use DD in DD itself and also using Pro Discover. Okay, so in 8.10 it has the Pro Discover basic, and then you would use that to convert the image so that way the application can use it. Even though it's in the lowercase dd extension, it won't be able to open it up unless you convert it. So with this, what we have is we're going to open up Pro Discover, and then we're going to browse to that image, right, which is the .eve. Click open, and then you're gonna convert and click OK. Okay. So Okay. So back in the SRV1, log back in to connect. Then you're gonna take what you did in 8.1 and then change it again in Autopsy, or you view it in Autopsy. So back into the sleuth kit with the Autopsy in Kali, you're gonna add the host, add the image file, but this one, make sure that once you find the location where that double DD file is located, we want to copy it. Okay, remember, use copy, do not analyze on that one. So copy it over to the Linux, Kali Linux machine. Once you add it, then we're gonna generate the MD5 list of files. So it's not just calculating the hash for that partition anymore. When you do file analysis, we can have a group of files and we can generate the MD5 for those files. Then once we have that, we need to save it into a text document or some form of list, so that way you can include that with your file case. Okay. Okay. So it's gonna have you save, and let me go back, sorry. It's gonna have you save, and then it's gonna click OK, and then click the image detail, print out the time frame that contained the results, so you have that for your record. Don't forget that at the end, right? Because it has a dialog box, print the frame of the containing results, so it gives you the result information. Okay, now for the hands-on project 7.3, you simply start with something similar to what they had walked you through. Go back to C drive, right, chapter 1 folder, this file, and then you will do the conversion. So if you get lost with 7.3, go, just refer back to the steps that you previously done in the last few pages, but use a different file with the project 04. Okay, so that way you know what to do from start to end and not have to, keep the same thing over and over again. So this is designed to have you repeat the process, but with a different file. Okay, and then once you finish, look over the summary, because it talks about additional things that your textbook don't talk about. If you haven't taken Linux courses in depth, you might not get some of the information. So here it talks about Linux kernel, graphical user interface. It talks a little bit about ext4, which is the file system, more of the recent one. If you're looking at the older Linux releases, it might use like 2 or 3. In most releases, like Fedora, different ones. So, and some additional information about Linux. I know the name is misleading because it says Macintosh, but on the Mac, because it's Unix, based design, you're going to see a lot of similarity. Like terminal is very close, very similar. Some of the functionality, some of the commands are exactly the same. So if you get comfortable with Linux, you should definitely be able to navigate and work your way around the terminal for the Mac. Okay. And here it touches on how files can be 2 parts, the fork and the stored, and the volume with the Mac. So these are some of the things that are essential, especially, you don't really, it's more difficult to create a virtual machine with, so a lot of the times what we'll do is we would, instead of using simulation, we have to go to a Mac OS system and be able to experiment with it. So if you have one at home, you can start looking at how you would see files and things like that on it, so you can get more comfortable with it. Okay, So that's why you don't see a lot of these virtual lab environment would have like a Mac system, because it would not be easily configured in a way where we would have Windows and Linux shared on the same network and be able to run multiple virtual machines together like this. Okay. So when we finish, click done, and that would send over the grade in a little bit. You can check that. Now, so let's say that you don't do it this week, you can still do it. It goes into my grade book as late, right? It shows up. I didn't set it up to penalize anything from practice lab or on the Canvas side. However, there is an availability late, so anything after that you cannot access because it won't allow you to even, you know, be able to click on a specific link once the assignment is closed. It'll just say closed. Okay. I am sorry I can't even get through some of the basic stuff sometimes because, you know, on both sides it's a little bit slower. Okay. Any question? Okay. So let me unshare and okay, so if you have no question for me, I rather that you work on your lab, right? If something looks different or if it's not there, go back a few steps to see if you have everything in place. If you're missing a step, sometimes it doesn't enable something. Make sure that you, as you go through it, keep all the virtual machine on, okay? And, you know, if you have any question, drop me an email and I would likely get back to you very soon because, you know, I know that sometimes you get stuck. And now if definitely if you check and if nothing's there and, you know, if you send it to me, if I can't find it, then we have to send up a ticket. But I think it should be okay as far as the assignment. So I have Devin here, Jufang here, Alma here, and David here. Chris is here. So I think I'm only missing one today. No question? Okay. So I think that's all I have for you guys. You can work on your lab and then get your homework assignment completed before the weekend so you don't have to worry about it. And then I will get the quiz releases next week, extra credit next week. And then we'll do the usual with the assignment in the lab. Okay, so no midterm in this class, only final exam. And then in week 10, I will let you know to look out for stuff. So I'm going to try to send it to you before week 10. So between now and week 10, I intend to put together a couple USB for each student. And then I don't have access to your home mail, like your address at home. So I will send you individual message to get that so I can get the evidence to you. You know, unless I make you come on campus and pick it up, but I rather not because of COVID. So I will put it into the mail and then you will receive an envelope with the USB and things that you need. And then you will have to conduct an investigation and put together a report. That will be our project. Okay? So the stuff that you're doing now will apply. So make sure that you remember the process. Any question? Okay, so that's all I have for you today, and I'm gonna get off Zoom so you can work on your stuff. I will mark everybody for attendance and have a wonderful night. Send me an email or see me during office hours if you have questions. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
See you next week.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
That was rather quick. all right.
Yeah. All right. So work on your lab. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Let
I'll
me
get
know if you have questions.
All
Okay.
right.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.